Hello, everyone, and welcome to this panel. Unfortunately, the last session wasn't a success due to internet connection, but I'm here with Mark Adams, who is the GM of eCommerce in Europe, and with Rytis Lauris, which is the CEO of Omnisend. I'm gonna first give you the microphone to introduce yourself, Mark, and then Rytis, and then we can go further with the panel.
Cool. So yeah, Mark Adams, I'm the GM for Europe at eCommerce. eCommerce is a e-commerce platform vendor, one of the most prominent and significant vendors in the space. We help merchants of all stages of growth, so small business merchants coming onto our platform so they can sell goods and services through to mid-market brands, high street brands, and large global multinational retailers as well are using our platform.
Cool, nice. I guess this is my turn. Yeah, so really thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Rytis, co-founder and CEO of Omnisend, and Omnisend is marketing automation tool built for everyone who is selling online for the e-commerce store. So we have deep and great integrations with eCommerce and some of other e-commerce platforms, and really help to communicate with existing customers for anyone who sells online by sending emails, by sending text messages, web push notifications, and it's all in one platform, all those different channels on a single flow, and really help to run retention marketing better for all online retailers, from small ones to mid-market. We don't target really like enterprise level ones, but like small ones to mid-market, I would say. The ones who use eCommerce.
Perfect. So the first question that I have for you is, what's your take on the current global situation, not from the e-commerce perspective? Do you think the lockdown is the best approach that we have as a human species to get over this challenge that's suddenly upon us?
Yeah, shall I take that, Valentin, first?
Yes,
yeah,
sure.
I mean, never in my lifetime has anything like this happened. I went through the financial crisis in 2008-9, where I ran my own business, my own e-commerce development agency, and that was pretty tough. But I think we're in really uncharted waters here. But what I would say is for any technology vendor in e-commerce right now, it is a relatively good place to be, because the only channel and route to market for many of these small businesses and restaurant chains and retail shops and stores up and down the country globally, they've all been shut down pretty much, and they've got no way of selling to direct to consumers anymore. And so I think e-commerce is going to play an absolutely pivotal role, frankly, in saving retail. And I think I'm certainly proud to be leading eCommerce in Europe, because I think it's important that we all lean in here and we all try and do what we can, especially for small businesses, because those are the ones that are immediately suffering. And have pretty tight cash reserves at the best of times, and now have no route to market. So we're certainly looking hard at what we do there, and I can talk a little bit more about that through the course of this conversation.
Okay, so Rytis, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I believe we have kind of an example, and like in general, about the current situation. So probably this is the only solution if we as a humankind and human being want to really avoid too many deaths, and to really be a very, very bad situation. So probably this is the only way to flatten the curve, is really to have this complete lockdown. And yeah, initially, like being honest, I was pretty skeptic about everything what's happening, as it was somewhere in China. But yeah, now I see that this is everywhere, and it's really close to us, and probably like complete lockdown. And this is the only way to flatten down the infection curve, and really not to bottleneck not like completely bottleneck our healthcare systems anywhere in the world. So I believe even the best healthcare system is not ready to handle this virus and the current situation.
Okay, so moving on to the next question, we've seen the announcement from Amazon that he's willing to hire 100,000 more people due to the surge in the demand for their goods. Do you think this is going to affect even harder the small merchants and how they can fight back?
Yes and no would be my answer to that. So, as a consumer myself, one of the first things I did was go straight to Amazon, and I started, buying various different products. The supermarket shelves were completely empty. I managed to get an order of toilet rolls about a week ago, which is fantastic. So I love Amazon. I'll never forget that. But I think for smaller businesses that are not able to sell via Amazon now, because Amazon certainly won't be taking in any products on their marketplace for new small businesses at the moment. I wouldn't imagine. They're quite locked down in terms of that. We have to find a solution for these small businesses to be able to keep trading. And I fear for these small business merchants. I fear for restaurants, bars, pubs, small independent retail stores up and down the country. They've got to find a way to start selling. As I said earlier, if you're a small business, your cash flow is really important. Your cash reserves, your balance sheet, if you like, is not going to be significant. You can't ride through a storm while shutting down your route to selling goods. So they have to find a way to keep that open. What we've done at eCommerce here in Europe, and what we're now rolling out globally, is an offer for SMB merchants where we'll give them 3 months free on our platform. We've tied in some integrations with Raw Mail and PayPal, and we've got those guys to lean in on this offer as well. PayPal, for example, offering reduced rates and payment fees. And we've got agencies up and down the country committed to setting up a store within 24 hours for any merchant, and for any merchant for £200. And so we've just put that offer in market. We want to reach out and get that message out to as many SMBs as possible. We need to get them trading. We need to get them selling their goods. And for many, this will be the only way that they're able to do that.
Okay, so Rytis, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I would say, it really depends on what you sell. I would say there are three major categories: dropshippers. So those who rely a lot on direct supply from China and Chinese warehouses. So we really see that they are in huge trouble now. So they don't have what to sell. But it came earlier than March, and at least from our customer base, what we saw that those like dropshippers who rely on direct supply from Chinese warehouses, they start shutting down in February already, because China was in a lockdown and the supply was a huge challenge. So they kind of it's not now when they are getting approaching the situation. They are already in the situation for quite a while. So it's a first group which definitely will lose a lot. The second group, I would say, is essentials. So essentials, both Amazon and small players, like all those grocery stores, online grocery stores who have online or door-to-door delivery, etc. They are booming a lot anywhere in the world. Food delivery, booming a lot anywhere in the world. So, and everything like pharmacy, cosmetics, those goods which people will continue buying because you just can't avoid using those. So those will benefit a lot. And I completely agree that, it will all move online from brick and mortars habits to online habits and online purchases. So so those will benefit a lot. The third group, which I would identify, is those who are selling nice to have goods. Although they have their own supply and then maybe they produce locally somewhere, but it's still nice to have. So in this uncertainty condition, I would say they will have temporary challenges, but in the midterm.
Then, Mark, let's continue like the guys are doing on the television, like nothing happened. Yeah. We will go on with the new question regarding the statistics. So according to Digital Commerce 360, 47% of the retailers expect some downside in revenue due to the coronavirus, according to a survey conducted in March 2020 on 304 retailers. 33% of the retailers said it's too early to tell. However, the majority of them, 58%, say the virus will impact consumer confidence, and 22% say that there will be a significant impact. What's your take on these numbers, and how big commerce is looking? It's foreseeing at the length of this, let's say, recession.
So, as you just heard, I think it's a tale of two cities, isn't it? It's some merchants are doing extremely well at the moment. Anybody in food and grocery, in essential items, in healthcare, pharma, well-being, gardening equipment, for example, is a massive category at the moment. And then, of course, you have some retailers that are really suffering. Anybody that's in fashion, for example, at the moment is suffering. Nobody's buying clothing, for example. Interestingly, what we're seeing at BigCommerce is over the last 2 weeks, the gross merchandise value, that's online sales going through our platform, has actually increased quite significantly. So that's probably due to the switch to e-commerce. More of a focus of selling products via that channel is causing people to do more online purchasing. And of course, we've got this whole fulfillment and delivery issue. I think what I expect to see, actually, certainly among larger merchants that have warehouses, they're still selling through their stock. You know, the deliveries that are currently or were scheduled to be on the water from China are now not going to be in those warehouses in 6 to 8 weeks time. It takes about 30 to 45 days for a container to come from China to the UK. So I certainly think those larger retailers will start to have delivery issues then, but we're not seeing in our client base people running out of those products at the moment. I think it is too early. So I'd imagine a case of two different stories: retailers and merchants that are selling products, that can get hold of products quickly and easily, that brands that are actually manufacturing their own products and have control of their supply chains are going to do extremely well. Anybody that is requiring products from overseas is probably going to struggle if they're not already. Yeah, that would be my take on what's happening. Certainly, we're seeing an increase in SMB merchants coming onto our platform at the moment. We're probably about 140% up over the last couple of weeks with SMB merchants, and we're being inundated with calls into our sales organization at the moment for smaller merchants trying to get up and running online.
Mark, if we are to look at some tips that you would give to, let's say, not the biggest retailers that have all these operations and procedures and redundant systems, what would some tips for let's say the smaller e-commerce merchants that are already in the market would be?
I mean, the number one thing is obviously understanding what's going on in your supply chain, ensuring you're able to fulfill orders that you do take online. I think, the consumer is in a heightened state of fear at the moment, and it's different in different countries. So take, for example, here in the UK, actually the grocery store shelves are now being restocked. I went to my local grocery store last night, and pretty much everything was in stock, and that's the first time in nearly 2 weeks. So clearly, in the UK, goods are now moving into grocery stores and convenience stores, and we've kind of seen the worst of that problem, and I think things are moving very quickly there, which is positive to see. Smaller merchants need to make sure that they've got an eye on what's going on in their supply chain. That would be the number one thing. I would say if you've got an e-commerce store, making sure it's up and running, making sure it's stable, making sure it's fast is, again, something that you need to be concerned about. Again, people are in this heightened state of fear and stress at the moment. You know, if people log onto your website and it's not accessible or running slow, they're going to get really annoyed very quickly, probably more quickly than they would do normally. And they're going to go and try and shop somewhere else. So it's an opportunity for SMB retailers, actually digital right now. And you need to make sure you're able to take advantage of it. But when you are, ensure that your site is up and running, it's performant, it's quick, and it's stable. That's my second point. My third point would be focus on what you can control and what is going to move the needle for you. So, you know, spend your investments very, very wisely, and spend them on things that are going to generate revenue, top line revenue, at the moment. And so be really focused and really strategic about, you know, where you're spending your money. You need to get up and running quickly if you don't already have a web store. If you do, you need to make sure that it is providing all the features and capabilities, that it continues to work, that you're reacting to any issues on the site with bugs or problems or those kinds of things very quickly, and that you can keep products being sold through that channel. And my final point would be is take the opportunity to engage the consumer. You know, make sure you're creating a digital experience that the consumer wants, that the consumer can engage with. And I think more than ever, actually, this is really important. People are feeling disconnected. They're disconnected from the high street. They're disconnected from, you know, traditional retail stores. They're disconnected from each other. Creating unique digital experiences that are going to wow customers and keep them coming back and create loyalty on your digital channel is something you really need to be focused on, and ensuring you've got the right tools to enable that, and some of the right skills that are going to enable that as well.
Great. So, Mark, regarding the companies that are highly reliant on China with their supply chain, and they are really dependent, do you think there are any other routes, or have you seen on your own customers at eCommerce, because you have a lot of you have thousands of customers? Have you seen any, let's say, creative way to bypass this issue of not being able to provide the goods because they are run out of stock?
I think, to the point earlier, it is still very early in the cycle. So in the UK, we've been locked down for a few days. Since the beginning of the week, while some companies kind of self-imposed a lockdown and had employees working from home, it wasn't widespread. So we're in the early stages of it. What we are seeing on our platform is that merchants that have complete control over their supply chain, brands, for example, even small brands, healthcare brands that are manufacturing their own products on their own premises, those guys are doing extremely well. We're also working with a lot of kind of restaurants and pubs up and down the country that, you know, were closed late last week, and now have no way to actually sell those products, sell food or whatever. So what we are seeing them is spinning up digital storefronts. And those supply chains from their wholesale suppliers of wine, spirits, alcohol, food items that they were selling in the restaurants, those supply chains are still open, and it's still possible to deliver those goods. So we're seeing no issues there. Actually, I had a delivery from my local pub just today. So I've started ordering through the new website that they've set up, you know, fruit and veg, for example. And so, yeah, it's where I guess supply chains are open and very localized. Those retailers that can get access to that stock and that supply chain are gonna be able to keep moving, I think.
Mark, regarding the positioning, let's say, let's suppose we have an e-commerce that is not working anymore, right? So he can't do anything about it. He can't deliver anything. What would be the smart positioning for the moment that the recovery will get here? And in terms of let's say communication, do you think it's smart for e-commerce companies to simply shut off completely and not broadcast to their audience anymore? Or are you a proponent of continuous communication, or from time to time to tell your customers that you're there for them?
The latter. I'm a big fan, especially at the moment, of over communication. We should be over communicating with everybody, whether you're a merchant, whether you're a software or technology company, being in touch with customers, being in touch with your partners, your supply chain, and communicating regularly is something that we should all be doing at this time, I think. And now more than ever, that focus of constant communication, I think, is really important. Because we are going to come out of this. Things are going to change very quickly. There's going to be a ton of pent-up demand once we do turn the corner. People, certainly here in the UK, the government stepped in very heavily to support both employed and the self-employed people by paying their wages. So we're not going to go over the edge, if you like. And I think consumers are still going to be buying stuff. They might be buying stuff very differently. They're certainly going to be buying it online now, and I think ultimately, actually, this is going to speed up the adoption of digital commerce as we begin to come out of it. And merchants need to be ready to take advantage of that. They need the digital skills to be able to do that. So take the time to learn, to read, to skill up, create a website, for example, put a storefront live. Start doing all the learning around being able to manage that so you're ready to go. Look at how you're going to build your supply chains. We certainly think that's the right thing to do. And I do go back actually to the financial crisis. As I said earlier, I ran my own agency, and 2008, the crisis happened. It went into 2009, and at the time, I do remember that we were kind of slow to react to what was going on in the market. Budgets for projects were diminishing. It was harder to win work. And we still kept spending like we'd been spending before. And then all of a sudden, kind of mid-2009, we had this cash crunch where we had a certain amount of money in the bank. And we had to pay employee salaries, and there wasn't enough. And it was really touch and go whether we survived that. Actually, we went and won a few customers. We did amazing deals on the payment terms to get cash into the business, and we fought very hard to win projects, for example. And you take the situation here, my message would be react very quickly to what's going on. Don't wait. And it's exactly what we're doing at BigCommerce. We're reacting super quick to the threat, but also to what is an emerging opportunity for SMBs to get online quickly. Conserving cash is absolutely key. As an individual consumer, as a business, as a merchant, you need to be conserving cash at the moment, because we don't quite know how long this is going to last and how long we're going to be locked down for. So I'd definitely be advising businesses to do that. And I'd be advising to, be positive and to focus on the things that you can influence and the things that you can change, and continue to do that. We're all going to get through this. I think for e-commerce in particular, it's actually a big opportunity as well as a current threat, and we need to treat it that way and work towards solving the problem for our merchants and for the consumer.
Super. Rytis, if your audio works, please step in.
Hopefully it does.
Yeah, it's working.
Cool.
So
nice.
the last question was regarding the the companies which are highly dependent on their supply chain in China, they don't have anything left to sell. And what is your positioning? Should they simply shut their mouth off without saying anything to their audience, or they should be positioning, advising and helping and supporting their audience, even though they are run out of stock?
Very good question. And yeah, as I said kind of at the very beginning, so what we saw among our customer base, that those who are really dependent, like heavily dependent on direct supply chains and supply from China, so they were already kind of affected some time ago, and it's not what is kind of recently happening like those days. So I would say two things here. I mean, if you are just a drop shipper, so probably there is not much you can advise on, because you were just selling some phone cases, like very commodity product, etc. But if you really have a brand and you're like D2C brand and you have like loyal customers, etc., so I would say at least at minimum you should be in the market. And I have like a few examples of our customers who are in the hospitality business and the travel industry. They are selling like travel packages, etc. So what do I see they are doing now? They are really sending advice how to spend time at home, how to travel while you're at home, like various travel related videos, travel related movies, online, like adventure sites, etc. How can you still be with your hobby, spend some time, etc. And they come a few times per week emails with advices how to spend time. Those are the best movies we recommend about various countries. Those are that you can read about travel. Those are books, etc. So, of course, I have no doubts, like in the background. Of course, they have downgraded the plan. Some of them, they have asked for us for kind of forgiveness for some time, and we are flexible with that. And really, case by case, we analyze our customer situation, and we want to keep them as a long-term customers, and we see their effort to survive, etc. So we are flexible here, but yeah, those are great examples that they continue producing the content. I have no doubts. Of course, they probably had some layoffs. They don't need that much people to serve everything, etc. But at least from a marketing standpoint, you have to keep the communication with your existing customers. That's very important.
I have a question which is related right now to the current situation in economy, because few people understand the fact that we're in this together, and they are let's say hoarding the supermarkets, and they are just I don't know, activating their prep modes, and they don't understand that even if we need to keep the social distance, we don't have to not care about the elders, about the less let's say privileged human beings. And the economy works on consumption, right? Because if all of us were going to go into our technological caves, right, to stay on Netflix and get from our supplies for 9 months, the economy is going to be shut down, and let's say nothing is going to be let's say helpful for the whole system. What's your positioning towards universal basic income and access to healthcare, so that we can have an aerial overview over the whole economy system?
So I mean, here in the UK, we have a universal healthcare system that is free at the point of consumption. So we don't have this issue where people have to pay for private medical healthcare and can't get access. So I don't really see that as a problem. The government's already stepped in to commit to paying 80% of privately employed people's wages, up to £2,500 a month, and now they're extending that for the self-employed as well. So I think our government have reacted relatively quickly to put people's minds at rest about that, and to put businesses' minds at rest that they're not going to bear the costs of all of the costs of keeping those employees on the books when they can't work. Clearly, there's going to be businesses that shut down and decide to lay people off. We're already seeing that. And I know it's very different in different parts of the world. So I was speaking to my counterpart in Australia the other day, and I know in Australia they have a very long-winded process around providing income support for those that have just been made unemployed. And actually, you have to go into the Department for Welfare, whatever it's called down there, and you have to wait outside and queue up, and then go and have a face-to-face meeting with somebody. So, which people just don't want to do at the moment, but they've got no choice. So I think it's on the onus is on government to come up with solutions to solve that problem very, very quickly. From a perspective of a software vendor, from BigCommerce's perspective, we of course are being very mindful and careful on and keeping our eye on what's happening. We're very close to what's happening with individual merchants. We're reaching out to those merchants to understand what's happening in their business. It's changing daily. And we'll hear something completely different from the same merchant within 3 or 4 days. But we have to really understand what's going on, to come up with solutions to help solve them, as previously was mentioned. We've got merchants that are saying, can we have payment holidays, or can we extend our contracts? And we've certainly been super flexible for certain merchants that are genuinely in distress, to help them solve that problem.
Rytis, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so I do agree, like, on the second part. So I would say, kind of in the business world. So I have never seen in my life. I even have never heard about like business being so united and so like willing to help each other, which is great. And like have a kind of payment holidays or prolonged contracts, etc. And like everybody's kind of willing to really be within the conversation and to find like mutual benefits to really keep businesses alive. So this is great. And like, from, let's say, Omnisense standpoint, we have free plan for everybody for like many years already, for everybody who's willing to just start their business. It's enough for start collecting and start like communicating with our existing customers. We have just added today for everybody who just upgrade like free SMS credits to try more channels to communicate with your customers, etc. And I see a lot of like actions like this happening from the business of all sizes, small to large ones, to enterprise level ones. So that's great. Another aspect is about like I would say governmental response is as fast as never and as massive as never. I mean, governments are spending and throwing so much money into the market, and like in 2008, 2009, like 2008, 2009 crisis, we didn't see that rapid response, probably because there was something to be blamed about. It was banks and like financial institutions, private financial institutions, and they were politicians. Some of the politicians which said, okay, this crisis is basically made by financial institutions and banks. So why should we throw like governmental money into trying to save something? So this is completely different in this situation. We see like billions being pumped into the market. So I'm not sure if it's going to be enough to balance. Especially with if the complete lockdown will be prolonged for like 2 to 3 months, which I believe it's very realistic. But again, like from e-commerce, from those who sell online standpoint, so I would say you should rely more on customer base in this situation, particularly because those who have already proved that they looked and they're willing to buy. So maybe you have to cut your margins, maybe you have to offer a better price, etc. Because yeah, there are two kind of people. Ones who are in really financial difficulties because they lost their jobs, because there is a lot of uncertainty in the family, etc. But there's another group of people who kind of still have their job, jobs remotely, and they have nowhere to spend their money. I mean, you don't go to bars, you don't meet friends, you don't travel, so you basically see like your cash in your account. So I mean, e-commerce players or like businesses. So let's help them to spend their time better. That's like one of our customers, like Jiggy Puzzles. It's really a startup company, D2C. They really make very beautiful puzzles, and they're really new. Relatively small company. They see kind of they're just booming because they help people to spend time at home, and then like they help to entertain. So it really depends, and I would say there is no kind of one point of view here, and it's nothing only bad, only good. But again, I would say it's very important for businesses to rely more and more on their existing customers, because to attract new ones might be a bit more challenging.
We can all learn from the past, and the humanity has been through some moments where recessions were on. I've recently read a fantastic take from Harvard Business School professor John Quelch that has analyzed the last economic downturn, and he stated that in a recession, consumers become value-oriented, distributors are concerned about cash, and employees worry about their jobs. But a downturn is no time to stop spending on marketing. What's your take on this? Should companies stop spending money on marketing? Are you much more cost conscious about your marketing spend at your own companies? Mark?
I think it depends what part of the economy you're in and what you do. Certainly at BigCommerce right now, we're not slowing down on marketing. Actually, for our SMB prospects and our SMB base, we're seeing huge demand. So we're definitely not slowing down there. But of course, every business and every business leader should be thinking very carefully around conserving cash. Should be thinking carefully around spending on activities that are going to generate a high ROI. And of course, this is all changing now, because an example in our business, events, actually face-to-face events, were a really great lead generator and brand builder for us back in 2019 across Europe. And now, of course, we can't do that anymore. And so we need to divert spend into other areas, into digital, paid, into events like this, virtual events, and find other avenues to communicate our message to the market. So it really does depend on where you are as an organization, how strong your balance sheet is, how confident you are that you can trade through this difficult period. I'm really grateful and privileged that I happen to be in an industry that is likely to see a lot of growth over the next 6 months at the back of what's happening, because it's going to expedite the move away from store-based retailing to digital selling, and we're a key technology vendor in that space. So it depends where you are and what you're doing.
Rytis,
what do you think? So from Omnisense standpoint, so exactly the same as Mark just said. So we're not slowing down. We keep investing. But yeah, again, we are somehow lucky in the situation, as we're serving those industry which is definitely will boom after this and will become strong after this. For the retailers, what would I advise? So like for e-commerce retailers, so what I would advise is really depending on what, referring back to what I said at the very beginning once I was like online for the first time. So if you're selling like nice to have goods, so maybe slow down a bit. If you're selling something which is really is a need of for everyone, so keep investing, or even increase the amount you're investing. I've just read some article yesterday that global expenditure on Google and Facebook ads has dropped about 20%. So it seems like the trend is that people are keeping their money and really being conscious about their budgets. On the other hand, the CPC rates dropped on average about 30%. So this is if you have cash in hand, and if you're luckily somehow in the industry where you are like producing or selling and you own the brand, you don't have those supply chain difficulties, etc., etc. So definitely increase the amount you're investing in the acquisition. I would say this is a great opportunity. 30% lower CPC rates, etc. Of course. About there was a kind of an analysis on modern retail I'm referring here. So like conversion rates for some of the businesses seems like they dropped. For some of the businesses, like again industry to varies, they kept the same. So if again, so just evaluate personally, but I would say for some of the businesses it's a huge opportunity if you are really struggling. So keep the money and be conscious about that. So. But yeah, it all shows that the opportunity is there, and I believe, especially for D2C, which is a great another great thing that I believe this is where we differentiate those people who are creating something really valuable, where brand does exist, where you have some unique art, and they are in a much better position comparing to those who are just purely reselling stuff or like drop shipping. There is no value added in those businesses. So if there is no value added, so the value is lost now. Yeah, so I think it's really good. So if you are in D2C, if you have brands, so do it. On the other hand, actually, like expenditure, and as we think about like expenditure, we usually think about acquisition marketing. So I would say, and it happened during the previous crisis as well, economical crisis. So retention marketing is the way to go now. Really rely more on the customers you already have, or on the loyal ones, those who really willing to help you, willing to consume, know your brand. No need to like lose your money on the first transaction, which usually happens in e-commerce. As a first transaction, usually it's ROI negative. Only from the second or third transaction, you start earning some money from your customers. So yeah. So rely more on your existing customer base. Retention marketing is the way to go here.
I might interfere here because Rytis, that's a great idea. I've seen back in 2019 we've ran a survey to e-commerce companies. There were 900 merchants that got this question: how are you retaining your customers, and how many of you are monitoring customer experience, which is it's an asset, not a cost. And only 20% of them were investing in customer experience and even monitoring their customer retention. Nowadays, when this downturn is upon us, those companies don't have any kind of asset, because nobody will care about the company that, according to Tom Fishburne, right? So he had this nice cartoon. Look, darling, there's an email from a company that we never heard since 2016. So if you don't keep your customers close, and if you don't care about them, when these kind of things are happening, your loyal customers are not there for you, because what you are as an e-commerce player, you're just moving boxes from A to B. So you don't have a loyal audience, but you only have people which are using your e-commerce as a commodity.
Just
moving a bit
random
further
people.
from yes, random people. So moving a bit further down the next question, we have a question from the audience, which I think it's interesting. Could this global crisis be a strong catalyst for migration to digital mediums through video and VR, implicitly marketing evolving in that direction? Like in the Ready Player One movie, right? So suddenly sci-fi movies that tackle this area aren't so much of a fantasy anymore, because we are all trapped in our houses and our homes, and VR could be the place where we can meet each other. What's your take on this? Who wants to respond?
So my view on this, I'm not convinced on VR kind of coming hot out of the gates and kind of taking over from an e-commerce perspective in the next 6 to 12 months. It's a longer term thing. I don't think the technology's quite there yet. I don't think the consumer's quite there yet either. But I certainly think that the e-commerce industry will never be the same again after this. I think, as I said earlier, it's going to expedite growth in our markets for years to come. And I don't think anybody, any retailer, any merchant would ever think again, do or don't I need a digital footprint? Do I need a digital selling capability? The answer is just going to be yes, because you don't know what's around the corner. It's a route to market that's extremely cost effective. And you know, right now for the next few months, it's going to be the only way through which most consumers are buying, and so it's going to change that behavior as well. It's going to get more and more people online, buying online, wanting to buy online, even when we come out the back of this. So I think it is going to be a huge catalyst for change, and I think from a technology vendor perspective, those vendors that are able to offer great value and speed to market and respond very quickly to customer needs, merchant needs, are going to be the ones that survive and thrive in this market, because the market's certainly going to change at the back of this as well.
I completely agree with Mark regarding like VR. Technology is not there. It will not really take off in like upcoming couple of months, or like 3 months, 6 months. No, not yet. What's gonna change here, which I'm kind of happy, if you can be happy in crisis, and the opportunities here is really to that commerce will really become much more omni-channel as it was before. And I personally myself, I'm a strong believer, and that's I'm not omniscient in general. We're a strong believer that commerce is going omni-channel direction, and we still had too much of this definition, like brick and mortar or like traditional retail and e-commerce, etc. It should be just commerce, where you as a consumer can buy any way you want, and you can choose your most preferred channel, etc. So all of those traditional businesses, which are forced now to move online, of course, they will open their brick and mortar stores again after the crisis. But I believe that they will learn that, okay, we need to have like omni-channel experience, and we need to create this omni-channel experiences and omni-channel capabilities for our customers to be supported on any crisis, on any situation. So that's a thing which is going to change, and it's going to change for good, and I'm kind of happy about that, because I thought that it's going to take another 7 to 10 years for the commerce to get there. So it's really expediting, is really accelerating this process, but not the VR, and I don't think that anything purely technology related will really break through in this short period of time. It's just too short period.
Yeah, I might add something here regarding this challenge that we're all facing. I think there are some silver linings. I mean, people will become much more conscious about how they spend their money. And I've read a book like 10 or 15 years ago, The Richest Man in Babylon, and the underlying factor there was that you need to keep 10% of what you're making, period. You don't touch those money at all. And if everyone would be respecting that, instead of, I don't know, buying a bigger TV set, the second house, the third car, and so on and so forth, maybe this crisis wouldn't be such a burden for, I don't know, 50 or 60% of the population from the world. And another silver lining effect is that
on the other hand, Valentin, on the other hand, we're kind of serving here those businesses who love that, that when people consume. We help them, run their online stores. So, I do agree with you, like from a personal standpoint.
Yeah.
I would just say on that. If you look at the financial crisis, which is the other big cataclysmic event that we've had in our lifetimes that's been pretty serious. A lot of people lost their jobs at that time. A lot of businesses went under, and what we saw, and BigCommerce was just founding at that point. What we saw is this move for people to kind of just go and set up these retail stores and these little retail businesses. And I think and expect the same thing will happen again, that people, for a lot of reasons, right, decide that working for a large corporate is not necessarily the safest thing to do anyway. I think also what's likely to come out of this is just people's behavior is going to change. I'll tell you something. So I've been at home for nearly 2 weeks, and I've spent a lot of time with my kids. I've spent a lot of time with my family. I'm eating dinner every night with my family. Don't do that regular. I have breakfast every morning. It's hard in a way, but actually there's lots of good things coming out of connecting with your family. And I think a lot of people are going to think, what do I do next with my life, and where do I want to spend my time, and finding pursuits and business opportunities that enable them to live a life where they're kind of happier, I guess. And I genuinely think that running your own e-commerce business is going to be on a lot of people's minds. I certainly hope so.
Yeah. Rytis, regarding the things that you've seen at these smart movers, like the e-commerce survive and thrive, because the most adaptable are the ones that are surviving, right? The human species is relying on how we adapt and how we cooperate. Have you seen some interesting and relevant examples that you could give us as an example?
Yeah, so I would say, like, an initial example. So just played around with the statistics a bit. So try to find how many stores in their names which are already using eCommerce and have in their names COVID or coronavirus. So there were kind of tens of them already. So there might be new ones just coming, or potentially someone who was selling another products online. So they kind of moved to it. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you. I think your connection is not that good, Rytis.
Okay. No. Okay. Yeah. So this is kind of one of examples of kind of new stores who are selling, like, and even like changing their names, etc. And am I still online?
You are online, Rytis, but unfortunately, we can't hear you too well.
Okay.
So moving to Mark, the same question to you, Mark. Have you seen some really fast and let's say adaptable e-commerce examples within your customer base, or not?
Yeah, a couple. So the one I mentioned is my local pub, actually, setting up an online store, and they're selling ingredients for people to cook their food at home, and they're delivering wine, or you can go and pick it up. That was really interesting, the speed with which they did that, and I now use that service. There was another one of our customers recently. They sell power tools on a B2C channel, so they do about 30-40 million in revenue online, B2C for people buying power tools online, and they recently set up a B2B storefront. So they wanted to sell to small hardware stores up and down the country. They set that up, spun up the site in, I think, 6 or 7 weeks, built it themselves, actually trained themselves on using our technology. Now they're doing, within a matter of months, 250,000 in sales online, and that's a completely new channel that they've spun up. And I quite like it as well, because it plays into this saving the high street. I think it's really important that we focus on trying to save the high street, that everything doesn't shift completely online, that we talked about omni-channel earlier, and creating that experience, but enabling small independent wholesale retail stores, hardware stores to sell the same kind of products at the same kind of price point that big DIY stores and B2B companies are doing. I kind of quite like that. Toolsaver is the name of that particular company, and Toolstop are actually doing that. And I guess the other one for me in our merchant base is a company called Skullcandy, the headphones manufacturer. What they do now on BigCommerce is literally change the storefront once a month. You log into the site and it looks completely different. They're launching new products continuously. The look and feel of the site's completely different. And so they've got kind of 12 marketing cycles, and it keeps the consumer coming back, interested in what they've got to say and offer. Of course, you need the right type of technology to do that, to be able to make those changes very quickly and relatively low cost, and you need the people to be able to do that internally in the business in a fast and efficient way. And I think technology is enabling merchants to react much faster to changing environments, competitive threats, the threat from Amazon and who are other pure play online players. And that's a fantastic thing, especially at the moment. I think we can take some solace in that there are lots of great success stories of digital retailers out there.
Great. So we will have to wrap up this session. Before closing, Rytis, if there's any message that you want to address to all the attendees that are live right now, because Mark tomorrow he's gonna talk about how to deliver e-commerce beyond limits, starting with 2 p.m. UK time.
So, it's probably the main message, which I keep saying for Omniscient team, is crisis is always a threat and opportunity all at the same time. So let's focus on opportunity side of that. And I have no doubts, whatever business you are, whatever position you are at the moment, there is an opportunity somewhere. So just keep looking for that, and I have no doubts you're gonna find it, and you're gonna come out much stronger from this situation. So that's probably my key advice.
That's great. So more about COVID-19 is going to be in my session tomorrow as well. We're gonna talk about how to craft the strategy during these uncertain times and what we've learned from the previous downturns. That being said, thanks a lot, Rytis. Thanks a lot, Mark, for being part of this panel. And goodbye, everyone. We'll see you in the next session.
Okay, thanks for inviting.
As an e-commerce manager, you want to stop spending money on expensive ads. OmniConvert Explore helps you improve conversion through A/B testing, personalization, and surveys. Understand that growth is also a matter of retention, not only acquisition. With OmniConvert Reveal, you'll understand segments, monitor customer experience, and nurture your customers on every channel.